All right, guys. Today we're going to start looking at the notes for World War II. So technically, our class is supposed to be more focused on the United States, but I think it's important to understand the war from a global perspective in order to understand the impact that it has on the United States. I know that you guys covered some of this in 7th grade, but I also know that maybe you don't remember all of it. So today is going to be kind of going over like a decade period of time before the United States gets involved. So we'll end officially, we'll end these notes with the United States getting involved. So you're actually not going to hear a ton about the United States today. So anyways, let's go ahead and get this started. All right. So the first thing that we need to think about for World War II is in Europe, there's going to be a rise of totalitarian states. And you guys read a little bit about the difference between a totalitarian state and a democratic state. So with that, Germany has a totalitarian state. Italy has a totalitarian state. Japan has a totalitarian state, and so does the Soviet Union. Okay, they have different forms, like these two right here. So this is Germany, and this is Mussolini in Italy. So these two are both fascist dictators. So basically, their people are allowed to keep their property, but they have a single leader and a single party. And then over here, this is the Soviet Union with Stalin. So this is a communist model, but there's still a single leader with a single party. It's very, very different than the way that these two approach. So with this, people don't have private ownership of property. They only have what's called collective ownership, which basically means that the government owns it as a whole. Technically, the people own it, but the government are in control of it. And then down here, you've got Japan with the emperor. Either way, the world is experiencing economic depression. Okay, we talked about the way the United States was going through that with the Great Depression. It's happening all across the world. And so as a result of that, people are willing to give up their liberties, their freedoms in some ways to look for help, to look for what we would call a savior. You're also going to have in many countries propaganda, specifically like Germany. So Hitler and the Nazi Party used propaganda to make the German people believe that Germany is going to be great again, because Germany was in a really bad spot after World War One. The Depression hit them harder than almost anywhere else in the world, and as a result, Germany and Hitler in particular start to use propaganda a whole lot. And every country uses propaganda, but Hitler is really going to use the Jewish people as a scapegoat, basically blaming them for all of the problems. He's going to blame other people as well, but we're going to see that that is going to be an issue as well. Okay, so that is why those totalitarian states are emerging. And keep in mind that Russia had a revolution in the middle of World War One, so they've been doing the totalitarian thing for a little bit longer, as well as Japan's been doing it for a long time as well. But that is why those totalitarian states are starting to pick up speed. Okay. All right, now we're going to go just by year. Okay, so some people say that World War II starts in 1939 with Germany invading Poland. I disagree with that. I think that it begins in 1931. And so the reason that people push for it in 39 is that's what we call a Eurocentric. Basically, you're focused on Europe. In 1931, what's going to happen is Japan, which is an island, is going to expand into Manchuria, part of China, and eventually into mainland China. Okay, and it's going to be brutal, like really, really brutal. So one of these invasions, not necessarily in 31, it's called the Rape of Nanking, and so it is just very vicious, very violent, and it's still, there's a lot of tension between Japan and China even today about some of this historical stuff. Okay, so that's 1931. So I believe that's when World War II actually begins, because Japan is going to fight in the war all the way to 45. So really, the beginning and the end is with Japan. Okay, the U.S. is going to respond by imposing some trade embargo, which means that we are not going to trade with Japan on certain things. Now, we're going to come back in a couple years and tighten those up, but that's kind of where we're at there. Okay, so move forward a couple years, 1933. In January, Hitler is going to be declared the Chancellor of Germany. Okay, what you need to understand about Germany is they have two different leaders. They have a president and then they have a chancellor. Okay, the president holds a lot of ceremonial roles. And so the president doesn't have as much control. And then you have the chancellor, and then you've got like a Congress that's called the Reichstag. So eventually, this is not necessarily super important. It is important, but not something that's going to be in the notes. Eventually, the Reichstag is going to burn down, and people have a lot of conspiracies about, was it burned down? Was it attacked? Who was it attacked by? And as a result, this is going to be the excuse that Hitler needs to take almost complete control. And so this idea of one state, one people, one leader, and he was that leader. Okay, and you see this picture of him right here. This is Hitler right here. And I believe this is the president at the time who's eventually going to step down. Okay, so a year later, Germany is going to begin to rearm. So it was a part of the treaty that ended World War I, where Germany would not rearm. And so they kind of sneakily start doing that, and then they stop doing it sneakily and just kind of do it. And the other countries say, hey, guys, you can't do that. That's against the treaty. But Germany just doesn't really do anything about it, and the other countries don't do anything either. So you've got to understand that there is a global depression going on. People don't want to get involved in a war because the economy is terrible right now. They don't need to spend money on fighting a war in another country. So people are recognizing what Germany's doing. They just don't recognize how far Germany's going. And certainly they don't think he's going far enough that they need to actually do something about it. Okay. October of 34, Italy invades Ethiopia. The League of Nations, which is kind of like the UN, so it's a precursor of that. Remember, the League of Nations was a group of nations that formed after World War I to talk about problems. So the hope is that they could talk about issues rather than going to a global war. Remember, the United States was not a part of that, which was weird because it was our president's idea, Woodrow Wilson at the time, but our Congress would not allow us to join as members. The League of Nations doesn't do anything here, okay? Again, they don't have a whole lot of power. All right, moving right along. 1936, Germany is going to reoccupy the Rhineland, okay? So Germany is not really supposed to be expanding or rearming or doing any of those things. But guess what? It does, okay? We're going to click on this picture. Okay, so this right here is Germany right now, like the solid pinky part, okay, in East Prussia right here. This area is the Rhineland, okay? So this is area that Germany had controlled at one point and they lost it. And so now they're just going to kind of take that back. And they say, hey, these are people that speak German. So these people should be allowed to be a part of Germany again. Some people are like, whoa, 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 Germany, what are you doing? But they don't care enough to kind of stop it. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. All right, October, Rome, Berlin. So that's Italy and Germany sign what's called the Axis Pact. Basically, Italy and Germany form an alliance. And so this right here is Mussolini, and this right here is Adolf Hitler, with an agreement that they are going to have each other's back. Both of them are doing expanding in different areas. So remember, Italy expanded into Ethiopia. And now Germany is expanding into the Rhineland, which we saw was this little area right here. Okay, 1930s-ish, the U.S. passes a series of laws that are called the Neutrality Acts. And basically it says we cannot sell weapons or arms of any kind or loan them to nations that are at war. Basically, the Congress is saying, hey, we see some little tension bubbling in Europe. We don't want a part of it. This is a European problem. We are not going to get drawn into this. We have our own problems. Because remember, this is like 31, 32. This is when our unemployment rate has reached its peak. Things are really bad, and they've been bad for like 2 years, okay? All right, 38. Germany is going to take Austria. Let's look back at this map. All right, again, this is Germany. We said they already took the Rhineland. This is Austria right here. Austria is its own country. Austria does not want to join Germany, but they are not strong to fight Germany off. And again, Germany says, hey, Austria, they're German speaking. 2020, they still speak German. They're German speaking people, so they should be a part of Germany. This is actually where Adolf Hitler was born, and so they annex or they take Austria. This is called Anschluss. If you look at, there are lots of pictures of people crying because they realize that there's really nothing that they can do. No one is stepping in to help them, okay? All right, September, we're going to get the Munich Pact. So at this point, Germany has taken the Rhineland and they have taken Austria. And so there is a meeting, I believe it's this one. There is a meeting, yes, so this is Mussolini right here. This is Hitler right here. And this is the British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain. And I think this is the French guy, but I can't remember his name, sorry. But it's called the Munich Pact. And basically it says that Germany needs to stop taking things. They can have one more thing. We're going to let them have what's called the Sudetenland, which is this right here. This is more German-speaking territory. And basically Hitler says, if you let me take this, I'll stop. I'm not going to take any more areas, okay? And so the French and the British say, all right, just don't take any more. We don't want to go to war with you. You don't want to go to war with us. Let's just leave it. You can take the Sudetenland, but don't take any more. If you guys, whenever you were younger, heard the song Little Bunny Foo Foo, it's like little bunny foo foo hopping through the forest, scooping up the field mice and bopping them on the head. Down comes a good fairy and she says, little bunny foo foo, I don't want to see you scooping up the field mice and bopping them on the head. I'll give you one more chance. And then little bunny foo foo keeps doing that. Okay, that is basically what appeasement is. It basically is saying like, don't do that, but not actually doing anything to stop them, okay? And again, you have to keep in mind that Great Britain, France, the United States, basically the whole world is having their own issues with this economic depression. They do not want to go to war. World War I is still fresh in their memories. It was bad. They do not want to go to war, okay? All right, 1939. It's going to hit the fan, okay? Germany takes the rest of Czechoslovakia. So this bit right here, this was the Sudetenland. This was part of Czechoslovakia. And then guess what? He takes the rest. Okay, at this point, and he does it by force. At the same time, or shortly thereafter, Italy is going to invade Albania. And so what we see is that Germany does not care about the Munich Pact. This thing that they signed where they said, okay, we won't take any more land, they lied. And they don't really care about listening to the other countries about don't do this, don't do that, okay? So Germany is like completely out of control, okay? August of that year, Germany and the Soviet Union are going to sign what's called a non-aggression pact. Basically, they say, hey, Germany, I will not fight the Soviet Union, you don't fight me. Let's just leave each other alone. And right in the middle, let me see if I can pull up a map real quick because I think you need to see. No, sorry. Map of Europe. Show you guys this. Sorry, it's kind of hard to, if you're not familiar with the map. Give it just a second. Sorry, my internet's a little slow. Come on, mappy map. Sorry guys, my Wi-Fi is taking its sweet old time. Okay, you can kind of see it from here. So this right here is Germany, and this right here is the Soviet Union. Okay, so they're basically saying, we won't mess with you, you don't mess with us. But there's this little sweet spot in between them, known as Poland. Okay, Poland, see if it'll come up. Poland is a brand new country. They were created at the end of World War One. Okay, so again, this is Germany. This is the Soviet Union, okay? So Germany says, I will not attack you, Soviet Union. The Soviet Union says, I will not attack you, Germany. Good deal. But what they say, and this part is like really unofficial. I don't know why this ad is here. Sorry. This part is really unofficial under the table. They say, hey, let's agree to divide up Poland. You can have this part and I'll take that part, okay? Poland gets no say in this, and really the reason that they do that is because this land had been part of Germany and this land had been a part of the Soviet Union before Poland was created in the last war. Also, they wanted kind of this buffer between each other because they don't really care a whole lot about this land except for the fact that it's a buffer to keep if Germany changes their mind or if the Soviet Union changes their mind. It just gives them a little bit more space, okay? All right, let's go back to here. All right, so again, that's the non-aggression pact. Basically, Germany and the Soviet Union say, hey, we're not going to fight each other, and they agree to divide up Poland. Now, that part is a secret. Okay, September. We're still in 39. Oops, sorry. I don't know how to zoom back in. Okay, so August, so now we're in September. September 3rd, Germany is going to invade Poland and they're going to take what they see as their half of Poland. England and France are going to declare war on Germany almost immediately, but they don't really do anything about it. So they declare war, but they don't like really attack. And so a lot of historians call this a phony war up until this point. Basically, they're saying like, we disagree with this, but they're not really doing a whole lot at this time. Okay, November, the Soviet Union is going to start to take part of Finland, which is like up above it. All right, 1940. Italy is going to declare war on Britain and France because remember, Italy and Germany are allies. That was part of that Rome-Berlin Pact. And within that short amount of time, Germany turns right around and takes Paris and takes about 3/5 of France and takes it very quickly. One thing you need to understand, Paris surrenders, okay? And the reason that Paris surrenders is because they know that if they don't, that Paris is going to get bombed and the city of Paris will be completely destroyed. So essentially what Paris does is they say, okay, we're going to give up and we're going to back up to a different area of France and we're going to like have our country over there. So if you look at the map, this is the part, so all this right here is France. So I can zoom in. All of this right here is France. This whole top part was occupied by the Germans. So the French government moves into exile in the southern part down here, and they're trying to hold off right here, and eventually part even leaves and goes to Great Britain, okay? So France is very quickly taken, and the people of France are going to be brutalized pretty badly. Germany occupied France, and so the French people, most of them were stuck, and there was a lot of killing, there was a lot of rape, there was a lot of abuse there. Okay, so if you guys remember, in the 1930s, the United States had neutrality acts, meaning that we could not sell to countries at war. Well, we kind of realized like, hey, we need to help Great Britain or we're going to end up getting pulled into this war because Great Britain is really the only one that is fighting against Germany at this time because France has been taken. So we change our policy to what's called the cash carry system. Basically, if a country, not Germany, but if Great Britain or France wants to buy weapons from us, we will let them, but they have to pay for it. They can't just like have it on loan, okay, like they did in World War II, in World War I, because We still ain't got our money back from that, and we're still in an economic crisis. We also begin our draft, and we're going to start training our troops. And some of these troops are going to go over and help the British, but those are mostly volunteer troops. At this point, the draft is more it's more just training, preparing. Okay, September of that year, the Tripartite Act, Germany, Italy, and Japan form an alliance. Basically, Japan is going to enter in. So there's going to be what's called two different theaters of the war. So there's going to be called the European theater. So it's what's going on in Europe and Northern Africa. And then there's what's called the Asian or the Pacific theater. So it's what's going on over here. Okay, so Japan has been taking Manchuria and part of China. So that was what we talked about already. And they're going to start expanding in to some areas down here, the Philippines, Thailand, some of these areas. So again, this is the Pacific theater and this is the European theater. We tend to focus more on the European theater just because, like I said, our history is very Eurocentric. But the Pacific theater was very, very important, and the United States was very involved over there. Okay. All right. So, 1941, this is a really, really, really big year. Okay. So we passed the Lend-Lease Act, which is now going to allow the United States to provide weapons and other materials to the Allies, and they can just pay us later. Because again, we're starting to realize that we need to help Great Britain, because if we don't help them in this way, we're going to end up getting pulled into this war, and we do not want that. That being said, it's inevitable. At this point, most people realize the United States is going to get involved in the war. It's just a matter of time. At this point, our president FDR is having conversations with Churchill, who is the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and they're talking very specifically and very seriously about the ways that the United States can help. But you have to keep in mind that most Americans do not want to be a part of this war. They still kind of see it as a European issue. And so as a result, we can't just go to war. Like, the Congress has to agree to it. Okay, June, Germany is going to invade the Soviet Union. This is called Operation Barbarossa. So remember, Germany took part of Poland, and now they're going to expand from Poland into the Soviet Union. Remember, Germany signed an agreement with the Soviet Union, the non-aggression pact, saying we're not going to mess with you. That was a lie. They knew that they were going to attack the Soviet Union. They just wanted the Soviet Union to stay over here and not mess with them until they were ready. Okay, so at this point, Germany can focus a lot of its effort over here because they've got France occupied. Their air force is kind of bombing Britain with that, and so they can send a lot of troops on land to the Soviet Union. Again, this is called Operation Barbarossa. They're going to have some success, and then they're going to get stuck down over here. The main thing is you don't fight the Soviet Union or you don't fight Russia during the wintertime. It's cold, it's big, you are not going to win. And we're going to see that's what's going to end up happening there to the Germans. Okay, July, the U.S. puts more embargoes on Japan. Japan sees this as kind of an act of war. Also, Japan is aware that the United States is helping the Allies, so Great Britain, France, and not helping the Axis power. So Japan is aware of what's going on there. All right, August 1941, it's called the Atlantic Charter. FDR, so that's the President of the United States, Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, they get together and they talk about what a post-war, so once the war is over, what the world would look like if it was free of these totalitarian governments, and almost kind of starts dividing up the world, saying like, okay, we could have influence here, you could have influence there, to set up democracies in these places. Okay. Between September and October, Germany is hitting a lot of the U.S. ships that are taking those war materials to Great Britain. And so this is, again, going to cause some more tension. You guys need to understand, at this point, it looks like Germany is winning the war. okay? It absolutely looks like Germany is winning the war. There's a lot of other battles that we haven't talked about, like the Battle of Dunkirk. That was a disaster. Great Britain was trying to free part of France. They were not able to. They got stuck, and they almost lost their entire like infantry army. Like it was really, really, really close to being awful. They had their army basically escape on fishing boats to get back across the channel. It was really bad. There's a movie that came out recently, like within the last 2 years, that's called Dunkirk. It does a fantastic job of showing the battle. It's very, very, very good. So if you're interested in that time period, that shows a lot of that. And it shows the understanding of the hopelessness at this point. The British feel like they're alone, and they kind of are. Okay, the French are not really able to help. The United States is not officially involved. They're not really sending a whole lot of troops. They're just sending some materials. And Great Britain is losing. They are getting hit very, very hard. They haven't completely given up. They're still holding their island, but they're not making any headway against the Germans in France, and it looks bad. All right, so that's September, October. December 7th, 1941, Japan is going to attack Pearl Harbor, and this is called, FDR gives his speech. It says, "This is a day that will live in infamy," and the U.S. declares war on Germany, Japan, and Italy, okay? This is the moment where Great Britain says, oh my goodness, we might not die. They realize that this is the thing that the American people will get behind. The American people has been attacked, and now they will definitely go to war, and now Great Britain will have help. There is hope at this point. I still want you to understand, at this point in history, it looks like Germany is going to win. Germany is being very, very successful up into this point. And we're going to see that doesn't turn around for another year. So you guys need to understand that it's been 39, 40, 41. It's been like 3 years that Great Britain and France have been fighting. At least 2.5 years have been fighting Germany again before the United States enters. Okay, so that is where we are going to stop. All right, I will. Hope you guys have a good weekend. We'll get part 2 later. Bye, guys.